Good morning and welcome to Breakthrough Walls. I'm Ken Walls and I'm your host. And I have a very special guest on today. This guy, I was just introduced to him recently, and he is the former Attorney General for the state of Nevada. He is a speaker, he's an author, he's a consultant, and he's, from what I can tell so far, a really, really good man. So I want to welcome my new friend, George Chanos, to the show. George, welcome to the show.
Hi, Ken. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It's not as early here as it is out there.
No, it's 8 a.m. here.
Yeah. I'll guarantee you it's cooler here.
Yeah.
Yeah. So George, I told you I started this show to help people get unstuck in life. And I guess you know this guy, Joe Ingram. You know that guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, and so this is literally your life story and how you've hit the bumps in the road and got through them and broke through the walls in your life that have held you back, metaphorically. And you know, so that's what it's about. So why don't we start with where you were born and raised?
Okay. So I was born and raised in Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, which is, you know, obviously the heart of the Midwest.
Yeah.
And it was a small town, about 50,000 people at the time. And my parents got divorced when I was very young. I had two wonderful parents who were important mentors and advisors throughout my life, but they had their own issues with each other, and they got divorced when I was very young. So at 1 year old, I was shuffling back and forth, not quite at one. I'm sure my mom kept me more with her in the very beginning, but by the time I was 8 years old, I was transferring by myself at Chicago's O'Hare Airport with a stewardess, going back and forth between my mom and dad, between Wauwatosa, Wisconsin, and Las Vegas, Nevada, where I live now. And those are very different environments. And I had very different parents. My dad was a traditional Greek from the Midwest. His parents immigrated from Greece. And he was basically a salt of the earth type of guy. He was the values that I got from my dad were character and dependability and integrity and family and those types of values. The values that I got from my mom was a model in the 1950s in Chicago and Milwaukee. And she married several times. She was a very bright woman. She was attractive. She was a career woman in the 50s and 60s when that was rare for a woman to both have a career and a family. She had both, and she had ambition. She was determined to live her one and only life under her terms. And she did that. She just passed away last week. My father passed away about 6 months ago. He was 92. She was 89. Yeah, she was 89.
Well, I'm sorry for your loss. Wow.
Thank you. You. Yeah. So, I celebrate their life. You know, things happen to us in life that are good and bad. Obviously, the loss of your parents is a huge negative. But, you know, life throws us negatives, and we have a choice on how we choose to deal with those circumstances, and I choose to find the good in things that happen, and look at the bright side of things. And I celebrate the fact that my father lived till 92, and that my mother lived till 89, and that they both had wonderful lives, and
Wow.
they made a contribution, and they left some great kids behind, and those kids will carry on their traditions and their goals and their own goals, and you know,
Yeah.
it is what
Wow.
it is. It is what it's part of life, right?
So you know, I come from a divorced family too, and I get that. I think you know, you ended up, I mean, obviously, where did you end up going to high school? Was it in Wisconsin?
I went in both states. I went.
Oh,
Yeah, I went to grade school, high school, and college in both Wisconsin and Las Vegas.
really?
Yeah, yeah. I shuffled back and forth my whole life.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. So
I wish I had frequent flyer miles from back then.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like you're sitting in a very beautiful hotel lobby.
That's my home. That's my home.
It's gorgeous.
Thank you.
That's the point. Like that's your home. That's a hotel lobby for most people. That's gorgeous.
Thank you.
So well, okay. So where do you, if somebody says, well, where did you go to college? Where,
Well, I graduated from UNLV.
okay.
I was student body president at UNLV.
Wow.
And then I went on and I worked for Senator Paul Laxalt in Washington, D.C. after that.
Okay.
And then I got hired by one of the top law firms in the world, actually. It was the third largest law firm in the world at the time. Finley, Cumble, Wagner, Hine, Underberg, Manley, Meyerson, and Casey. And the young associates at Finley were called the Dobermans. And I was one of the Dobermans. And
wow.
yeah, so I was an aggressive litigator. You know, litigators lead stressful lives. You know, you're battling in court, and I did that for many years, and ultimately had enough of it, and did quite well at it. You know, I became kind of captive to it because it paid very well.
Sure.
And so I did it longer than I kind of wanted to. But the money was really good. And so it was hard to not do it, you know?
Right. So when you say litigator, was there, did you have a specialty? Were you more on the defendant side, I guess?
I was a business litigator. So what happened with me was I was trained by Finley as a business litigator.
Okay.
And we had substantial clients. We had large international clients.
Sure.
And high net worth individuals. And then after doing that for a while, I decided I wanted to go out on my own. And so I opened up my own law firm here in Las Vegas. And I built a boutique practice. And when I opened up my doors in Las Vegas, Vegas was the fastest growing city at the time. I was practicing in the San Diego office of Finley.
Wow.
And when I moved to Vegas, it was because we were the fastest growing city in the country. And I thought, you know, I've got contacts there. I've got family there. I had worked for Senator Laxalt. I'd been student body president. Why don't I leverage some of these things, go back and build a law practice in Las Vegas? So that's what I did. And when you open your doors in as a sole practitioner, I had my wife working with me. She was a lawyer as well. And we had another associate when we started. Yeah. And so it was a very small boutique practice. And people weren't all coming in for litigation. Some people wanted to buy a business. They wanted to go into partnership. They wanted to buy a piece of land. So there was a lot of transactional work. I had to become a self-taught transactional lawyer.
Wow.
And then ultimately my practice came full circle. And I did both business transactions and business litigation. I did not do any divorce. I did not do any bankruptcy. You know,
no, you didn't chase any ambulances or?
Well, I had a couple of cases that were people who were injured, but very few. No, I was not chasing ambulances, and I was not doing that type of thing.
I have some friends that do that. One of my best friends is a big business litigator here in Columbus, actually. So I'm familiar with the stress levels.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah.
So you did how long were you in private practice then? So you were with the big firm for how long?
Well, I graduated in 1985,
Okay.
and then from 85 to 2005, I practiced in San Diego.
Okay.
And then in 2005, I moved back to Las Vegas, and I
Gotcha.
practiced in Vegas from 2005. I'm sorry, from 1995 to 2005.
Okay.
And in 2005, I was asked by the governor of Nevada to become Nevada's Attorney General. And so I shut down my law practice. I gave it to my partner, and gave all our clients to my partner, who was younger than me. And he took over the firm, and I went and became Nevada's Attorney General. And I did that for 2 years. I was expected. What happened was the former Attorney General became a federal judge, and it created a 2-year vacancy that the governor in Nevada was empowered to fill. And so he looked around the state to find a replacement, and settled on me. And I was asked to take the job. I shut down a very lucrative law practice, and I took a job for $130,000 a year.
Oh my gosh!
As Nevada's Attorney General, because it was a dream. It was something that I had had an interest in my whole life, actually, to one day get in politics and to try to make a difference in the world. And when I got into politics, I found that it wasn't for me. I loved the work. I loved the law. I loved being in a position to make decisions. So all of that was great. The job itself was fantastic. I loved the job. But I hated politics. I hated the dysfunction. I didn't really fit into the political structure because I'm not a party type of tribalist type of guy. I'm not a buy it off the shelf, pick the whole list of things that the Republican Party is selling or that the Democratic Party is selling. I'm an issue guy. I look at issues one by one, and I make the decision one by one. So, Republicans may have a position on gun control, right? They may be very pro Second Amendment, right?
Right.
Well, I'm pro Second Amendment, but I'm also in favor of a ban on assault weapons and high capacity magazines, right? So I have a rational perspective towards these issues. I have a concern over global warming like the Democrats do, but I actually think that there are more pressing issues facing America today than global warming. And I believe it is, in fact, potentially an existential threat, but I believe that the division that this country is encountering today is a far greater existential threat and a far more immediate existential threat than global warming. So, I look at issues, and I'm not a party type of guy.
I'm with you, man. I totally agree. We gotta stop the madness of the separation. That's my personal opinion.
It's a huge problem. I mean, it's worth talking about a little bit. Researchers have gone back, and they've had to go back 160 years to the Civil War to find a level of political polarization in this country. They had to go back 160 years. It was not this bad during the Civil Rights Movement. It was not this bad during the Vietnam War. And, more people died, 700, 800,000 people, Americans, died during the Civil War. That's about 10 times what died in Vietnam. It's far more than all the wars that America has ever been involved in. We lost more lives during the Civil War. And in 1860, we didn't have 300 million guns in circulation.
Right.
In 1860, we didn't have social media. We didn't have foreign countries that could reach into the cell phones of our youth and agitate hundreds of thousands or millions of people in disenfranchised communities spread throughout the United States. We had 25 riots during the 2016 election. Many of them were instigated either by foreign or domestic actors.
Yeah.
And, we are not immune from that. I don't believe that future wars will be fought with aircraft carriers and cruise missiles. Nobody's going to attack the United States with that.
No.
What they're going to do is they're going to disrupt our economy. They're going to disrupt our infrastructure. They're going to disrupt our population.
Yeah.
There may be pandemics, like what we're experiencing with the coronavirus. But
I have heard and read and from credible sources that the coronavirus is a man-made virus.
Well, that's interesting. I have read from some researchers at Scripps that it is not a man-made virus.
Okay.
But that's sort of misleading, because if I were a state actor and I wanted to create, first of all, I don't believe in conspiracy theories. Okay.
Right.
I'm not gonna.
I don't either.
I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole, too deeply. But just talking about that.
Yeah.
If I were a state actor and I were going to create a virus, I certainly would not want my fingerprints on it. Right.
Right.
So it wouldn't appear to be a man-made virus, right?
Sure,
I would create an organically created virus,
right?
And then I would manufacture it or mass produce it. But I wouldn't start with a man-made virus that could be easily traced to a point of origin.
Right.
So the fact that it is not man-made doesn't mean that a state actor couldn't have been behind it. But I don't believe that's true. I believe that it's probably what China has said it was, although I don't take China at its word on many things. But I have no, let's put it this way, I have no evidence to believe otherwise at this, right? So
I mean, and to your point, I think that, and this is my opinion, I want to hear yours, but do you think people might be overreacting?
Well, some people might be, but I don't think, generally speaking, my answer would be no. The things that you're seeing that are quite dramatic, where countries are closing borders,
right,
and where the NBA is canceling its season, and the James Bond movie is postponed till November, and we may cancel the Summer Olympics, and all of these types of things. Do I believe that that's an overreaction? Absolutely not. And the reason for that is not that I think that this particular virus is all that different from other viruses or more scary. It's because I think that containment is and should be our number one priority.
I agree.
And that's how do you contain something like this? It's part of it is of course, washing your hands and disinfecting and limiting travel and limiting contacts with crowds and all of those things. And these are very, very important considerations. They shouldn't be underestimated, because ultimately not every country can impose quarantines like China, right? China has the ability to lock down 50 million people. We don't have that ability in the United States, right? No. What's his name? Andrew Cuomo tried to quarantine a one square mile radius in New York and had to call out the National Guard. And people don't cooperate, and Americans think they have rights, and they don't listen to police. They throw water on them and shoot them in Dallas, and so we're a very different country. Yeah. But Italy has closed its borders, and China, has done that as well. And the reason for containment, people need to understand what containment's all about, right? Why do you close your borders? Why do you cancel the NBA season? Why do you restrict travel from foreign countries? And the reason is this: viruses spread. They spread through contact among our population. And this virus is going to spread. Angela Merkel in Germany estimates that 70% of the German population will be infected with this virus. And as of today, Germany's only got 2,000 or 3,000 people that are infected. And so, and yet she believes 70% of their population will be affected. So they've done some modeling on this, and they're not sharing their modeling with us.
Right.
But the modeling is probably very scary. And so when you talk about overreacting, they don't want us to overreact. And so they're not sharing all this information with us. But there's historical precedent that we can look at. And, we can look at, for example, the 2009 swine flu. And that's very instructive in terms of what can happen. So, and that happened here in the United States. And, it certainly didn't create this type of reaction. Now, maybe it was overshadowed by the 2008 economic collapse, right?
Right.
And maybe there were other things that were going on that were occupying our attention at the time.
Sure.
But the swine flu, let me give you just some basic information on what happened in 2009 with the swine flu.
Okay.
All right. So number one, there were 59 million Americans that were affected with the swine flu. 59 million. Okay.
Really?
Yeah, 59 million people affected with the swine flu in the United States in 2009, wow. Which seems very odd because you think we heard less about that during the Obama administration than we're hearing today in this administration about what's going on here. Now, maybe that's because this is a global pandemic as opposed to something that was more concentrated in the United States.
Well, that and I think social media is much more prevalent today than it was in 2009.
Right. Well, that's true. Okay.
Yeah.
So in 2009, during the swine flu, you had 265,000 people who were hospitalized. Right.
Jeez.
And you had about 12,000 people who died. Okay. So here's the and then when you look at the history, I've made a few notes on this.
Yeah.
That I'll share with you. So the first case was in Mexico in March of 2009. And then it spread to the United States. And it was here and spreading in April, May, and June of 2009. And by June 25 of 2009, the CDC reported that we had 25,000 cases. So from March, April, May, June, right? So we're talking about four months. In 4 months, we went from 0 to 25,000 confirmed cases. Now,
jeez, why don't I remember this?
I know. Now, in June, this is in June of 2009 that we had 25,000 confirmed cases, right?
Okay.
Now on June 25 of 2009, the CDC came out and said they had just reported that we had 25,000 confirmed cases. Later that month, they came out and said, we're estimating 1 million cases. Okay. So they're reporting 25,000 cases.
My God.
And then shortly thereafter, they're estimating 1 million cases. Okay.
Okay.
So what they're reporting today is not what exists. Okay. There will be an announcement at some point of a much higher number, but they don't have those facts right now, and they're trying to get a handle on them. So we have that by November of 2009. So from June 25, 2009, an announcement of 1 million cases. In November of 2009, in the U.S., they estimated 22 million cases. 22 million.
22 million of the swine flu?
22 million of the swine flu in November of 2009. By December of 2009, there were 50 million and 10,000 people dead from the swine flu. Okay?
Oh my gosh.
Now, vaccines became available in December of 2009, and that put a huge crimp in the spread of the virus, and saved God knows how many lives. But But so that is a recent precedent. That is 2009. That is the United States. That's an influenza, and so it shows you, what can happen, right?
Right.
So the same thing can happen here, right? Now, 10,000 people dying is actually a small number.
Right.
It's, we have far more people dying from car accidents or cancer or other things that affect us that we live with all the time.
Yeah.
There are many other diseases that are killing more than 10,000 people a year, but those diseases aren't affecting 50 million people, right?
Right.
So part of the issue here is containment, and part of the issue here is treatment. So the first issue on containment is that you want to contain the virus. You want to contain the spread of the virus for a number of reasons. Number one, you don't want large segments of the population being infected, right? The smaller the population, the better, the more controllable. If we have large populations, large segments of the populations that are infected, they will overwhelm our hospitals. And if they overwhelm our hospitals, then that has a reverberating effect with regard to other issues. So other people that are seeking medical attention may not be able to get into a hospital if the hospital is overrun with influenza patients.
Right.
So that's the first issue. And then the influenza patients won't be able to be treated either because there are just too many of them, right?
Yep.
All right, so that's one issue. So containment is a huge issue. We need to try to limit the spread of this virus. So how do you limit the spread? Well, in China, they quarantined the entire city of Wuhan, right? And have that option. Quarantine the entire, right? Has shut down the borders.
Yep.
And again, we don't have. So theoretically we could do it, but it would cause such massive disruption that we wouldn't want to do it. It would be an absolute last resort.
Right.
So it's unlikely. So and even if we tried, enforcing that would be difficult.
Right.
So what we have to do as Americans is we have to self-quarantine. We have to self-quarantine, which means we have to do all the intelligent things that will limit the spread of the virus, meaning we have to wash our hands. We have to not touch our face. We have to use disinfectant frequently and liberally. We have to avoid crowds. This is why the NBA canceled their season. And one of the blessings that we have in this country is that responsible companies like the NBA take action on their own. Nobody said to the NBA that you must cancel your season. Nobody said to the makers of the James Bond film that you must delay the opening. I mean, they had advertisers all over the country that put up billboards for a release in March. And those advertisers are going to be sorely disappointed that the release is not occurring until November. But the people in Hollywood that are releasing that movie made the hard decision and said, you know what? We're just not going to do this. We're not going to, expose the public to these crowds. And the NBA made a similar decision, and others are making similar decisions. And I applaud those decisions. I think that
I do too.
These are good corporate citizens that are doing this. These are not people that are acting out of hysteria. These are not people that are overreacting. These are people that are engaged in self-containment and helping society contain the virus. So these are good things, very good things.
Yep.
I've personally canceled my travel plans on a lot of non-essential travel. I have a wedding of relatives in Orlando at Disney World. The last place I want to be right now is Disney World.
I'm with you.
So I'm not taking my side of the family out to Disney World for a wedding. Not today, not next month. And I'm also canceling. I wanted to go to Asia and I wanted to go to Europe, and I'm not going, not right now.
Yeah.
I'm not canceling. I may, if I have to get on a plane for something, I may do it. If I do, I'll take precautions.
Yeah.
I will avoid it if possible. I am avoiding going into crowds. I'm avoiding concerts or any kind of heavily congested areas right now. I'm also 61 years old, and I've had pneumonia when I was 30. So
wow.
I am in a high risk category, and so I may be more cautious than some.
Yeah. I don't think, I had Mark Victor Hansen introduced me to a lady named Mitzi, and I won't go into her who she is, but she's a science writer, a Harvard grad. She's a friend of mine now, and I had her come on. She wanted to come on and talk about this. She was the most widely syndicated science writer in America at one point, and so she's brilliant. And she said, she was talking about how to make a mask and she wasn't trying to cause any kind of panic. It's more of just be prepared, like use your brain, like, right.
Yeah.
And I don't get the whole run on toilet paper, but whatever. That doesn't make sense, but people freak out for their own reasons, I guess.
And I'm not a prepper. So I'm not stockpiling, large quantities of food and everything. Right. But I was a Boy Scout, and I believe in being prepared. And so, I will have extra water on hand.
Sure.
And I will have, a reasonable supply of food in my home. Yeah. But I'm not stocking up for the apocalypse, and I'm not filling my garage with food or doing anything like that.
Right.
But I'm taking common sense precautions, and I'm trying to contribute to containment as a good citizen, right? Yeah. So I'm keeping my distance from other people in public. Yeah. If I had a cold or I was sick, I would not go out at all and expose other people to my sickness. Just be a good citizen.
That's it. Don't sneeze on people. Don't cough on people. Yeah. Stay home.
Yeah,
I agree. And well, Bob and I were on a live last night. I think you hopped on at the
end. A little bit.
Yeah, we were talking like just use common sense. Like just use common sense. That's really. But people, it's like today, and is it an overreaction? I don't know. But I kept my 9-year-old daughter home from school. Yeah. And if the school calls with questions, I have answers. Yeah. So, you
don't want to overreact, but you also don't want to underreact.
Right.
It is equally important not to underreact.
That's right.
So people should not compare this to the flu. Okay. People should not say, this is just like the flu. Okay.
Right.
Because we have the flu every year. And nation states have not closed their borders.
Right.
And the World Health Organization has not declared a pandemic.
Right.
This is a rare occurrence.
Yes.
And should be treated with the gravity of a rare occurrence. But like anything else in life, you gain nothing from hysteria. You gain nothing from worry. So don't worry. Don't be hysterical. Just be smart.
That's it.
That's it.
You just summarized it. That's it.
Yeah.
So thank you. I'm glad we got a chance to talk about that, because it's good to hear somebody. I mean, you've been in a very extremely high governmental position, and you kind of know, right? So I love that, man. So you back to who George is, and like you're a rock star. So you were the attorney general for 2 years. Did you say you decided not to run again for a second term because of the politics? You didn't like the politics.
Yeah. I was appointed to fill a 2-year term.
Okay.
And by the governor, the former attorney general resigned to become a federal judge. I was appointed to fill a 2-year vacancy. Yep. I filled that 2-year vacancy. I actually loved the job. I loved the work. I got to a unique opportunity of being able to argue before the United States Supreme Court, a once in a lifetime opportunity. I had a unanimous decision in front of the court, which was a highlight of my legal career and really one of the highlights of my life. And it was an extraordinary experience. But politics is very dysfunctional, and politics is very toxic. And, we all have a choice to make, and we all have a right to decide how we want to live our lives. And I chose that I did not want retail politics. I did not want to be an elected official. I did not want that to be part of my life. And so even though I had a 5-to-1 fundraising advantage, and even though I was the incumbent, I gave back all the money. I had raised $1.2 million. My opponent, who's now a United States senator, had raised $165,000 to my $1.2 million.
Wow.
I gave my money back to my contributors, and I raised money for my Democratic opponent.
Wow. Good for you.
Yeah, which you don't hear a lot of,
No.
Yeah.
No. Crossing the aisle, man. That's very sacrilegious in politics.
Right. But she's a good woman, and she's a good friend, and I was at her wedding and she was at my wedding. And the fact that she's a Democrat doesn't concern me. I don't consider myself a Republican or a Democrat anymore. I used to be a Republican. I was a socially liberal, fiscally conservative Republican.
Yeah.
But in 2016, I withdrew from the Republican Party out of protest. And I registered as nonpartisan, and I felt that 2016 was a watershed election in my view, where the American public was given two choices between two candidates, neither of which did I feel deserve to be president of the United States. I have a higher standard than what either of those two candidates offered. Some people may disagree. Some people may think, that they like one or the other. I think we can do better out of 340 million people. I think we can do better than both of what we were offered in 2016. And I think 2016 to me was the canary in the coal mine. It was the first warning sign, the big warning sign to me that politics is now almost irredeemably dysfunctional, and that systemic change is going to be required to really right the ship and get us back on track. You just look at things. I mean, one administration builds, the Obama administration, builds the Obamacare, right? This healthcare system. And it's imperfect. It's got all sorts of problems. I don't like it. I think that, it did nothing on cost containment. They didn't go after the pharmaceutical companies and the hospitals and the insurers and work them down on price and try to create an affordable system. There are a lot of flaws in that system. And so, the Trump administration came in and they did everything they could to dismantle it, right?
Yeah.
Maybe that's maybe it should have been dismantled. I don't really know. I'm not deep enough in the details of the system to really opine on that. But the fact that one administration builds a system and the next administration tears it down, and then you see Trump building the wall, and you see Democrats saying that if we're elected, we'll tear down the wall, right?
It's insanity.
Yeah, any system where one government is, one administration is building something at our expense,
right?
And the other administration, the subsequent administration, is dismantling it at our expense.
Yeah,
is by definition a dysfunctional system.
Amen. I agree. It's a mess, and I'm just gonna put this out there, and I don't want to turn this into any kind of political debate because I don't debate. Like, I have my beliefs, but it's out of control, and to see the literal hatred and the blame and Jack Canfield wrote a book called The Success Principles, and the very first principle is take 100% responsibility for every single outcome in your life. It's the most important principle anybody could live by.
Yeah.
But we're in this society of pointing fingers at everybody except the mirror. And it's like, come on. I get, honestly, it makes me sick. I don't watch the news. I don't watch CNN. I don't watch Fox News. I don't watch it. I can't. It makes me crazy. I can't do it.
So the difference is I watch all of it.
Oh God!
I watch all of it, and
notice I have no gray hairs.
Yeah, exactly. I watch all of it, and I read everything I can get my hands on. And so even though I don't want to be an elected politician, I have always had a passion. I've had three passions in my life throughout my entire life since I was a child. One is art. The other is politics, and the third is business. And so those three things have always enchanted me and interested me.
That's awesome.
But when you talk about lessons, there are a lot of lessons that are important, and self-sufficiency and personal responsibility and choice are very high among them. But when we look at what's going on today, and when I talk about division as being an existential threat, I truly believe that division is our greatest existential threat today. Because in 1860, when we had the Civil War, the greatest carnage in American history, we didn't have social media. We didn't have 300 million guns in circulation. So we are at greater risk having this level of division in the country. So we need to get over the division. And how do we get over the division is the real issue. And and it's not easy. It's difficult. It's difficult because you may have someone like yourself who believes in personal responsibility, right?
Right.
And I believe in it as well, right? I believe in it as well. And then you see someone else who is not acting with personal responsibility, right? And you look at that, and you look at the unfairness of you being asked to carry this person who is not engaged in personal responsibility, right? There's an inherent unfairness in that, right?
Yep.
And so conservatives and Republicans and people who generally embrace the concept of personal responsibility, they recoil at the concept of why it's hard enough me living my own life and supporting myself and worrying about my own children and worrying about my own parents and worrying about my own family.
Yeah.
And now you're asking me, you want to tax me and you want to overtax me, to create a socialistic society for Bernie Sanders and his followers, right?
Yeah, that sounds like a brilliant plan.
Yeah. So there are a lot of us that think, that's bullshit, right?
Yep.
But on the other hand, you also, just like when we say overreaction is counterproductive, as well as underreaction to the coronavirus is counterproductive. Right. Well, the same is true when you look at issues like economic inequality, right? All right. So we have and capitalism versus socialism, right?
Right.
So the notion that capitalists have all the answers, or socialists have all the answers, or Republicans have all the answers, or Democrats have all the answers. For me, these are all non-starters, okay?
Amen.
And they're non-starters for a number of reasons. Number one, there are very many good ideas within the Republican Party. Yep. And there are also a lot of bad ideas. Yep. There are also very good ideas within the Democratic Party. And there are also a lot of bad ideas, right? Capitalism is the greatest economic engine that the world has ever devised, but it is not a perfect system. It is by no means a perfect system, okay? Right. Communism is not a perfect system. Socialism is not a perfect system. And capitalism will be found to not be a perfect system, all right? Right. We are already finding that we are leaving millions, that the capitalist system has left millions of people behind, right? Yep. Because we've preached personal responsibility. We've preached we're not our brother's keeper. And we have allowed large segments of our society to become disenfranchised, to become, magnets of crime and discontent and hopelessness and despair, right? Right. So now you've got social media, and now you've got foreign actors. Russia tried to influence our elections. The Trump administration hired Cambridge Analytica to target people called persuadables. The Cambridge Analytica identified as persuadables, people who could be persuaded. Right. We have these social media tools where we can reach in, we can find people, We can identify them. We know everything about them. We know their preferences. We know their beliefs. We know their desires. We know their hopes, their dreams. It's all on social media. It's in their purchasing history. It's in data. It's
their search history.
It's all very much obtainable, right? So now we have the ability. We've learned more about the human brain in the last 5 years than the last 5,000 years. Advertisers have been manipulating us for generations, right? Now we have the ability, foreign governments or malicious actors have the ability, foreign or domestic, have the ability to go into these centers of discontent, these centers of disenfranchisement, these ghettos, these urban blight areas, right? And they can go into the cell phones of these people and they can agitate, right? And they can create disruption, right? And if somebody wanted to start a war with the United States, they wouldn't fire a cruise missile. They would pull up an aircraft carrier on the beaches of Florida, right? They would sit at their laptops. They would have thousands of people on laptops, and they would be targeting our population, and they would be creating division. They would be creating discontent. And we now see the highest level of division in the United States. We are the most ripe for agitation, right?
It's true.
We had 25 race riots throughout the United States in 25 cities throughout the United States in 2016. Many of these were agitated, intentionally agitated. There's evidence, it's been reported, that the Ferguson riots in Ferguson, Missouri. I mean, we could spend an hour talking about the shooting of Michael Brown by Darren Wilson. There's an 87-page Justice Department report that I would highly recommend that everyone read. No one's read it. I've read it, and basically it'll tell you that Michael Brown made some very critical errors in the way he interacted with the police, and they ultimately cost him his life. I mean, one quick fact people don't realize: he actually, not only did he punch Darren Wilson while he was sitting in the cop car. This is all in the Eric Holder Barack Obama Justice Department report, right? So this is not me saying this. This is Eric Holder and Barack Obama saying this.
Right.
There were witnesses that were interviewed, and two elderly black women were interviewed that were walking down the sidewalk, and their testimony is contained in the report. Michael Brown punched Darren Wilson in the face while he was sitting in the cop car, and then leaned in and wrestled with him for his gun. And the proof of that is the fact that Darren Wilson pulled his gun and shot Michael Brown in the hand in the cop car.
There's video of it.
This was I never saw this reported. Maybe there was video. I don't know. But I never saw it reported. The first time and the only time I've ever seen it was in reading the 87-page Justice Department report. But this young man actually went for the cop's gun in the car, was wrestling with him for the gun, and then he ran off. And then when he was chased, he was told, stop, stop, stop. He finally stopped. He never raised his hands. The witnesses said he never raised his hands. He never said, stop, don't shoot. He turned around and he began to charge Darren Wilson. And ultimately, when he got about 10 feet away, he was shot. Darren Wilson unloaded his gun and killed him. But there were race riots that were intentionally agitated around the Ferguson shooting. And those race riots then spread to Minneapolis and Chicago and Milwaukee and to 25 cities around the country. And guys, and George Soros, for example, was reported as spending $33 million to bus paid to pay to organizations that bust paid protesters to Ferguson, Missouri, paid protesters and paid organizers and agitators to create and foment this public outcry, which resulted in riots and spread to riots around the country, ultimately leading to the assassination of 5 police officers in Dallas, Texas, assassinations of police officers in Baton Rouge. The bottom line of this is that technology and media can be used to agitate the American public. The American
It absolutely can.
There are segments of our society that are at a boiling point, and
Yep.
these segments can be agitated
Yep.
and disrupted, and this can cause tremendous turmoil. So the moral of the story is that, you know, why do we have these pockets of criminality and economic blight and discontent and disenfranchisement that create a vulnerability for the country as a whole, that can be approached by agitators or by foreign actors or domestic actors?
Right.
And my point would be, we have a vested interest. The people that are working successfully, that are engaged in personal responsibility, that are, you know, trying to lead good lives, that are getting educated, that are working hard, that are doing what they're supposed to do, that community of people has a vested interest in paying attention to those who are not doing as well, those who are falling behind, those who are economically challenged, those who are suffering, those who are, you know, living on the streets that are homeless. We have ignored this population for far too long, or we have addressed their needs inadequately. Either way, we need to change that behavior. We need to understand that society is profoundly interdependent. We are all interdependent on one another.
Right.
And we can't let our brothers fall to the wayside. And because America's poor is very different than a third world country's poor. Yeah. America's poor will not starve and suffer in silence. Okay.
Right. They will, or they don't. If they do, it's a choice. And I in my book, I mean, I'm a recovered alcoholic, 17 and a half years sober, but prior to that, I actually was homeless 4 different times. And I wrote in my book that in retrospect, looking back, it was, I said it was a choice. I never like said, hey man, I hope I become homeless, but it was like, I could have made different decisions and eventually I did. Right. So
it sounds like I need to be interviewing you, because that's actually an amazing story and could be very inspiring for the people that I'm talking about, you know. Because you look at you today, and the fact that you were homeless 4 times, tells me that there's a lesson there, right? How did you go from that to where you are today? And people need to hear that story, and so more people should be talking to you about that story, because that's an important story. My point that I'm trying to make is, yes, it's very much about personal choice. And we all are ultimately responsible for the choices that we make. But some of the choices that we can make also include the choice to help others, right? And we're responsible for that choice as well, right?
I agree.
And if we choose not to help others and it comes back to bite us, which it will, then we are responsible for that choice as well. And so, so the point that I'm making is that, you know, people like you today, right, that are doing well, people like me that are, you know, have done well or are doing well, we have an opportunity and I believe a responsibility to lend a helping hand.
Totally agree.
To bring other people up, right? And if we do that, and it's very much like, you know, circling back, tying this back into the coronavirus. It's very similar, in that, you know, there are certain things that government can do for us, and there are certain things that government cannot do for us, right? Government cannot quarantine the U.S. population. Not all of it, right? No. Small segments of it, sure, but not large scale, right? So we as individual citizens have to take corrective action on our own, right? All right, government cannot solve our homeless problem. Government cannot solve our problems of economic insecurity and the fact that, you know, half the country is economically insecure today. In fact, more than half the country. I read that 78% of people in America, 78%. I mean, this is unbelievable. But that level of people don't have $500 in savings in their bank account.
Right.
78% of the population. Now,
yeah.
frankly, they're one coronavirus away from potentially losing their job, losing their home, losing,
everything
that they've worked for, becoming homeless, right?
Yeah.
Because they don't have the savings to weather the storm. What if the virus, causes their business to close and they're out of work? They're out of work for a month, right? And they can't pay their rent, and they get evicted, right? So we are, a lot of people are in a somewhat precarious situation, and so government's not going to stop in and come in and help them. Trump can do all he wants to do in terms of tax credits and deductions and food stamps and whatever he wants to do. But the bottom line is government can't solve this problem. And so the only way we're going to solve this problem is by the American people helping each other. The same thing is true with the coronavirus. The only way we're going to solve this problem is by the American people doing what they need to do without the assistance of government, without the direction of government.
It's like I said, I kept my daughter home from school.
Exactly.
And my wife and I had, we talked about, she said, you think? And I said, no, I know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that the coronavirus is in her school.
Yeah.
I'm saying I'd rather be like, hey, guess what? The coronavirus showed up at your school and you weren't there. So you're good. Right. So, and so again, I cannot believe we've been on here 56 minutes already. That's insane.
Yeah.
So, and I like to keep it around an hour or so. And
let me use a couple of these last minutes because I want to get something out.
Oh, we got plenty of time. We'll stay on for I don't care how long. Let's just keep going. I just want to give you a heads up.
I'm yours, so I'll stay as long. I'll stay as long. I'll stay as long as you like. I wanted to make sure that some people are going to tune out because an hour is a lot, and I wanted to make sure some people. We'll go on and talk about whatever you want.
Yeah.
But I wanted to make sure some people knew that I have a book out, and the reason I want them to know about the book is not because I need to sell books. Okay, I really don't need to sell books.
It bought that beautiful hotel lobby you're in.
Yeah. But here's the book. It's called Millennial Samurai, right?
Yep.
Okay. And let me just tell you a little bit about what it's about. First of all, don't believe me. Just go on Amazon and look at the reviews. Look at what people are saying about the book. Okay. And that will convince you that you need to get the book. All right.
Okay.
But basically what the book is if I were to drop you off in the Amazon rainforest and I were going to give you a duffel bag, we all know the types of things that we would put in that duffel bag, right? You'd put water, you'd put a compass, you'd put, matches or some utility to start fires, right? You'd put a knife or a saw or, blades of some kind. So these are the types of things that would be useful for someone to survive or thrive in the Amazon rainforest, right?
Right.
Well, this is your duffel book. This is your duffel bag to survive and thrive in the 21st century. Okay, and it's written to give people a leg up. It's written to empower people. It's written to take that guy who right now is homeless or underemployed or not reaching his goals or reaching his dreams or her dreams, and to empower them and tell them, look, here's what you need to do. These are the things not only that I have done to achieve whatever level of success I've achieved, but these are the things that all successful people have done from the dawn of time. These are the ancient core values. These are the principles. These are the attitudes. These are the traits. These are the things that people who have been successful do. Okay? So that's what Millennial Samurai is about. Now, it begins with mindset. It talks to you about how to think, how to, critically think, how to make good choices, how to analyze and solve and resolve problems, how to communicate effectively, how to negotiate effectively, how to think, right? And then it goes on and talks about core principles. It talks about, attitude. It talks about optimism. It talks about gratitude. It talks about authenticity. It talks about character, courage, commitment, and compassion. It talks about all of the issues. It's 182 chapters, okay? And that sounds like a lot, but they're only 1 to 3 pages each.
Oh my gosh.
They're very short. They're very easy to read. You can sit down, if you have 5 minutes, you can sit down and read a couple of chapters. If you have 10 minutes, you can read 4 or 5 chapters, right?
My wife wants to know, which curriculum did you use?
Which curriculum?
Yeah.
Well, what does she mean by that?
Yeah, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure what she means by that. I'm not an educator, and I'm not a teacher. So that may be a term of art.
Actually, I think you are.
Yeah. Well, anyway, that may be a term of art in the education community. But basically, what I did.
Oh, she was talking to somebody else in the stream. My apologies.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah.
So the idea here is that if you read these chapters, and you can read them over time, it will take you through from beginning to end, essentially everything that I think you need to know.
Right.
To not only survive and thrive in the 21st century, but to have a great life, right? This is the information that I am leaving my daughter and my nephews and nieces. This is the information that honestly, I am more proud of having authored Millennial Samurai than I am of having served as Nevada's Attorney General.
Wow.
Or that I am of having argued before the United States Supreme Court and won a unanimous decision.
Wow.
I am more proud of Millennial Samurai. And the reason is that Millennial Samurai will end up changing more people's lives. And Millennial Samurai will reach people, and it will literally change the lives of human beings, more so than anything that I have done in my life. And so that's why I'm proud of it.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and if you read the reviews, you'll know why. It's been called a secular Bible for the 21st century.
Wow.
It's been called a masterpiece. It's been called. People have said this book should be in every home in America. It is genuinely a really powerful book, and you can get it on Amazon. And I
put the link in. And actually pinned it to the comments. So
awesome. I hope people do get it. I hope they read it, because if they read it, it's all about finding breakthrough knowledge, right? So how do you find? We are in an information era, right? Yep. So we have information overload. We have information that is coming at us from all different directions. We have more information and data than we can possibly digest, right? So in that environment, how do you find breakthrough knowledge? How do you find knowledge that is going to be life-changing in a sea of information and a sea of disinformation?
Yeah.
Right? All right. Well, here's how you do it, right? I have spent the last 5 years reading and researching, reading everything that I can get my hands on about how to survive and thrive in the 21st century, about what the next 30 years is going to be like.
Right.
And I have analyzed what I have seen from the perspective of a person who has spent the last 30 years solving complex problems. That was my business. My business as a lawyer was solving people's problems, right? You'd come to me with a problem, I'd help you solve it. It was typically a problem that you could not solve on your own, right?
Yep.
So how did I solve those problems over the last 30 years? I used what's called a helicopter perspective. And a helicopter perspective is where when you have a problem, you see the problem from the ground. You see the problem from your individual perspective, right? Yep. You don't see it from all the different angles, right? You don't see it from your wife's perspective or your partner's perspective or society's perspective. You see it from your own perspective, right? All right. Well, as a problem solver, I couldn't just adopt your perspective, or I would be no better at solving your problem than you are.
Right.
So I had to take on a different perspective. I had to take on a helicopter perspective. I had to understand your wife's perspective, your child's perspective, your partner's perspective, society's perspective on whatever your issue happened to be, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I had to understand all of these different perspectives. And so by taking that helicopter perspective, I was able to look at problems objectively and comprehensively. And I was able to fashion solutions and create options and generate paths towards success, right?
Right.
And so what I did was in 2012, I had a heart attack and I was worried about my potentially dying. My daughter was 16 at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I had nephews and nieces and my sister's son was 21 at the time. I was worried about, if I died, what would happen to them? And so I began writing, I put my affairs in order, and then I began to write a letter to my daughter. That letter ultimately became my first book, which was called Seize Your Destiny, A Roadmap to Success, right?
Well, I literally just got chills. Like, yeah. That's unbelievably cool.
So that was my first book. That was written as a letter to my daughter that ultimately became a book. And wow. This was basically me downloading all of what I had learned throughout my life over the prior 30 years about how to have a happy, successful, and meaningful life. So that was my legacy to my daughter. And after I finished it, I said to myself, okay, great. I've done what I set out to do. I've downloaded my knowledge. I've given her this legacy of information.
Right.
If she ever has a question and I'm not there, she can look in the book and she can find the answer. But then after I did that, I realized, something, the life that she is going to live is going to be very different from my life. It's not going to be the last 30 years. It's going to be the next 30 years, right?
Yeah.
So that required that I now look at the next 30 years. So then I began researching the next 30 years, the future 30 years. And that ultimately led to a second book of life advice, and that was Millennial Samurai, right? So
now, I have a question. Should they be read in consecutive order, or would the Millennial Samurai?
No, the beauty of these books is that you can read, you don't even have to read them in the order that I've presented them, let alone read Seize Your Destiny before Millennial Samurai. You could take Millennial Samurai, for example, right? And I could open it up and I could turn to a chapter on failure, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay. So or you could turn to a chapter on opportunity, right?
All right, you've got something highlighted. Read that highlighted section.
Okay, well, first of all, that's my wife. This is my wife's copy.
Well, good. I want to see what's important to her.
Okay, so she highlighted, opportunity is rarely patient. It doesn't normally announce itself, and it sometimes comes disguised as misfortune.
Oh, man. Okay. You just sold me, man. I'm getting the book.
Yeah. Yeah. So, for example, it's kind of a crass example, but we've been talking about the coronavirus, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So you've seen the stock market plunge, right?
It just popped up on my screen that it just plunged deeper.
Yeah. So what does that create?
Mass panic.
Well, it also creates a buying opportunity.
It sure does. Yep.
Right. At some point, we're going to hit the bottom of the market.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's going to happen at the bottom of the market? Right. Well, what will have happened is that the wealth of millions of people will have been wiped out by that stock plummeting from $100 a share to $40 a share. Right.
Yep.
But the smart people and the people who have money, they will come in at $40 a share and they will make a killing.
Yeah.
They will make a fortune. So within that distressed situation is an opportunity, right? There's an opportunity there. Yep. So, life doesn't always give us good things, right? Life gives us good things and it gives us bad things.
Yes.
If we only celebrate and we only take advantage of and we only leverage the good things, and we allow the bad things to harm us,
Yep.
to undermine us, to disincentivize us,
Right.
to demoralize us, right? Then
Yep.
half of the things that are happening in life, we're not fully taking advantage of, right? We're allowing them to harm us, right?
Yep.
So instead of when negative things happen to me, okay, when my parents get divorced when I'm 1 year old, right? I don't look at it as woe is me. I look at it as holy shit, I get to travel all over the country, right? I get to live in different cities. I get to meet different people. I get to develop, a true sense of independence. I get to grow through the process, right? When I have a heart attack, I don't sit in bed and say, oh my God, I've had a heart attack. Now I'm gonna die. Now I'm going to die, and I'm going to, I become an author.
Right.
I become an author. I launch a whole new career. I become an author and a speaker. It's the greatest thing. The heart attack was the greatest damn thing that's happened to me.
Well, and so I want to point something out, and we are probably getting close to needing to finish up in the next 5 minutes or so. But I want to point something out, because one of the questions I ask every guest is, and before you answer, I want to add something to it, but that is, what, in your opinion, do you think it is that holds most people back in life? And I want to lead the witness.
Well, I have my answer already. It's one word.
What?
Thoughts.
Thoughts, right. But it's a little deeper than that, because you just answered it without answering it. And that is, it's the stories that you're telling yourself. Like, right? Like, oh, I had a heart attack and now my life's over. And you're like, no, screw that shit. That's not where it ends. That's where it begins.
It's how you think. It's how you think, which is why Millennial Samurai begins with mindset, right?
Right.
The first portion of the book, the first section of the book is all about mindset, right? It's about how you think, okay? Because how we think determines how we act. And how we act determines the habits that we form. And the habits that we form determine the lives that we lead, and what our destiny ultimately is. So it all begins with your thoughts. Oprah Winfrey was interviewed in 2014 at Stanford University, and she was asked about the failures of her philanthropic investments in Africa. She built a girls' school, she built a library, and nobody came. And so she invested millions of dollars, and nobody came.
Right.
And the grad student at Stanford said, "What did you learn from this experience?" And she said, "I learned that in order for people to succeed, you first have to change the way you think. You first have to change the way you think." She said, if you have a sense of hopelessness and a lack of aspiration, okay, then a book in a library is no different than a piece of firewood. It has no relevance to you.
Right.
If you don't understand how that book can change your life, and if you don't believe that your life can be changed, then you will never read that book, and it's about as good as a piece of firewood, right? Wow. But if you believe that your life can be better, and if you believe that that book may be able to be the key to change your life, and books do change lives. Moments change lives, sentences change lives, paragraphs change lives, chapters change lives, right? So it may not be the same sentence. You asked me to read that sentence, right? That sentence, somebody reading that sentence could have an epiphany moment that could say to themselves, you know something, I need to think differently about the way I'm looking at this problem, right? I'm going through this divorce. I just lost my job. I just had a heart attack. I'm thinking about it a certain way. I need to think differently about this circumstance. Reading that book teaches them how to think differently and why to think differently, and actually causes them to think differently.
Right.
It has changed their life, right?
Man.
It's changed their life. And so moments change lives. I can tell you time and time again, I can tell you all sorts of stories. Ringo Starr was in his hospital bed. He was asked, how did you become a drummer? So in later life, when he was part of the Beatles, he was asked, how did you become a drummer? He said, I was sitting in a hospital bed. I was 13 years old, and a nurse came in and she put a little toy drum on my bed. He said, I never let it down.
Wow.
That moment changed his life. Okay. Moments do indeed change lives. Les Brown talks about this all the time. Okay. He talks about a teacher that he had who said some things to him that empowered him. And moments do change lives. So Millennial Samurai is important for a number of reasons. Number one, it contains breakthrough knowledge. Okay. So as you're looking through this, instead of looking through a sea of distraction and instead of reading a 200-page book on optimism or a 200-page book on communication or a 200-page book on collaboration or a 200-page book on creativity, what I've done is I've read these types of books and I've read articles and I've read studies and I've devoured information for a 5-year period, and then I've distilled that information down, distilling it down to its essence, right? And I've written these short chapters that are powerful, that are talking about all of these issues, and that are giving you exactly what you need to know about each of those issues, nothing more and nothing less.
Wow.
So you're not wasting your time reading a bunch of shit that you don't need to read.
Right.
You're reading just what you need to read, right?
Yeah.
So my challenge was doing that in short, bite-sized chapters, right? So character, for example. University of Pennsylvania professors have written a 800-page treatise on recently. And I've written 3 pages, right? So how do I take 3 pages? How do I take 3 pages and convince a young person or any person that character is probably the most fundamental point in my life that has changed my life, that has created all of the opportunities, all of the most important opportunities I have had in my life, I can trace to character, right? So I've got to convince you in 3 pages that you need to embrace good character as part of a central pillar in your life. Yeah. And that's what I've tried to do. And I've tried to do that with character, courage, commitment, compassion, failure, all of the big issues, and tell you just what you need to know. So I highly recommend that people read the book.
You know what? I'm going to get the book, and then I'm going to read at least part of it, and then I'm going to have you come back on.
Awesome.
I would like Bob and I do live streams together all the time. I'd like you to be a regular contributor to my live stream.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
You're amazing, man. and Bob said, you're not going to believe this guy. I totally, you've blown me away. And I'm telling you, you've blown a lot of other people away. I think you just sold a bunch of books, by the way. So
well, that's good.
Pay the electric bill next month.
That's good. Let me tell everyone one other thing that they should do. They should go to a website called limitlessthinking.com.
Is that your website?
Yeah, limitlessthinking.com. It's an empowerment event that I'm putting together, okay? And it's going to be a low-cost event. So the idea is to empower other human beings, to have people like Bob, like you, like me, people that have had success in life, people that have something to share, people that want to give back to other people, people who want to do what it is that I've been talking about for the last hour, which is enrich other people, lift up other people.
Yes.
Limitless will be that event. And it's in the process of being developed right now. The first events will be in Las Vegas. We'll start small. We'll do things like Bob is doing with, Next Level, right?
Yep.
We'll have dinner parties. We'll have cocktail parties. We'll bring people together. We'll bring mentors together with mentees or potential mentees.
Yeah.
We'll bring young people who need guidance and direction together with people who want to give guidance and direction. We'll bring together billionaires, Olympic athletes, people who have, I've got a guy who was a heroin addict who's now a PhD, getting his PhD in neuroscience. I've got you, you were homeless. Now you're, successful in doing podcasts and helping other people and writing and researching and speaking. And, you've got Bob, who's a behaviorist who has studied human interaction and human behavior and is speaking and writing as well. All of us can help. We can be part of the solution. In fact, it's more than that, Ken.
Yeah.
We are the solution.
Amen.
We are the only solution. Okay.
Amen.
Government is not coming in on a white horse to save anybody. Okay. We are the guys who are coming in on the white horse. We are the solution. Okay. And so I'm trying to gather more people like you, like Bob, like myself, who want to help. And I'm trying to gather people who want help and bring them together and have humanity empower humanity. I genuinely believe in the deepest part of me, I genuinely believe, and I've seen overwhelming evidence of this, that we are all profoundly interdependent.
Yep.
We will sink or swim together. Okay.
I totally agree.
Swim together. Okay.
Yep.
We have to lift up other people. And this is what I have now devoted my life to. I'm 61 years old. This is what my life is about. I couldn't be prouder. I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be more content. And this is what I'm doing. And and I'm not alone. You're doing it. Bob O'Donnell's doing it. A lot of people are doing it. And I want to bring those people together with people who need what we're doing and help them. And help them so that together we can have a better society.
A rising tide raises all boats.
Yes.
So I think I have chills, by the way, because like you're just totally speaking my language. And look, I'll interject that, prior to me getting sober 17 and a half years ago, I was a very selfish man. I was a multimillionaire in my 20s, and I drank all that away. But it was all about me. And I had this shift about 15 years ago that was like, wait a minute, that's not what life is about. It's not about me. It's about us. It's about we. And so, that's what it's about. And I love it. Now, I don't go out to the streets and try to convince homeless people that they don't have to be homeless. But I do my best to help them if I can. So, but look, we could go on all day. I have an appointment coming up here shortly, and I know, and people are loving this, by the way. So you have to come back on. I'm begging you. I'm pleading.
No. Hey,
I want you back on. We could talk literally for hours. I know.
Yeah, you don't have to beg. I'm available anytime you want me.
I love that, man. George, you are a phenomenal human doing, and there are human beings and there are human doings, and you are a human doing. And I love it, man. You're out there changing the world. Everybody watching this right now, go to limitlessthinking.com. I already posted the link to Amazon to go over, click on the link, go get the book. And unless you're not going to read it, but then get the book and give it to somebody that's a doer.
Yeah. So, and when you go to Limitless Thinking, register. It doesn't cost you anything.
Okay.
We're not going to send you a bunch of useless email and fill your email box. You can unsubscribe at any time, but we're just going to notify you about what we're doing and where you can participate and how you can participate and when the events will be. Wow. And if you're not interested, you'll be able to unsubscribe. But just sign up for information. If you want to be in the know and you want to be in the loop, you need to be registered so that I know who you are and I can reach out to you.
There's a lady on here who her son is homeless. Her name is Susan Day. She's living in her car with this guy, her son, because she's trying to save him. He's schizophrenic and some drug issues and stuff. And she's in tears right now because she feels hope because of you. So,
Susan, I have a very good friend. I have a very good friend named Denise, and her son is homeless and has a drug addiction problem, and it's torture for him and for her.
Yeah.
I'm my deepest sympathy. I can't imagine what you're going through and what you're feeling. And that may be a problem that is well beyond my level of expertise. He may need medical or psychiatric counseling. I don't know. I don't know the circumstances.
Right.
But I can tell you that that for you, reading Millennial Samurai will help, and you might find some things in there that that can help. There's a chapter on EMDR, which is a new form of counseling that is experimental, and it's proving very effective. The Veterans Administration has embraced it. Who knows, maybe EMDR is a good solution for your son. I don't know. But the bottom line is,
it's a good starting point, Susan.
Wow, you're a courageous human being. My heart goes out to you.
She's a good woman. I know her well. So.
Yeah.
Well, George, listen, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Everybody on here is blown away. You're an amazing, you're amazing. So I don't know what else to say. It's rare that on
from Wauwatosa.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
From Wauwatosa.
Well, that cold weather did something really good for you. So yeah. Well, listen, thank you. Don't hang up on me. I am going to end the broadcast. So thank you guys so much. Thank you to everyone who shared this out and who stayed on and comments and love and everything. So thank you. George, thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ken.
Look forward to having you back on.
Yeah. Thank you.
All righty.
Okay. Bye-bye.